So what about the next guy? The next guy that has something similar like this happen to him. What if it was you that was in the line of duty, whether it's a cop stateside or you're overseas as a soldier or contractor or whatever, and you get done this way? I mean, look, when they violate your rights the way that they did ours, obviously we want to tell our story, and it's not necessarily for us,
Sure.
but it's if we don't say something and say what happened to us during this, then it's easy for them to do it to the next guy because the last guy didn't say anything.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto,
Switch is on, motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline podcast.
The Switch is on Battleline podcast. This is actually an interview a while in the making because Paul Slough reached out to me like a long time ago. Like literally, I was going to say months, but maybe even years at this point, saying, hey, we're working on this book. Would love to come on the show. And we don't have Paul Slough, but we do have Dustin Heard, who was a part of Raven 23 and the author of this book, who worked with the guys Gina Keating, author of Raven 23, How the Department of Justice Betrayed American Heroes. The book is out today as you're hearing this. The day that you're hearing this is the day that it's out. So once again, Gina Keating, investigative journalist, author of the book with the guys, Dustin Heard, Marine and Blackwater contractor, as many of you know already, pardoned by President Trump at the end of his last administration for the Nicer Square incident. I'm sure we'll get to a lot of stuff on both of you. But actually, I think a good way to start it, Dustin, before you even get into any of that Blackwater, I would just like to hear about your life prior to joining the Marines and what inspired you to join the Marines. Because I think everybody who comes on this show who's a veteran has their own unique story of why they chose to serve.
So one of my father's good friends growing up was a Army Green Beret, and he would always send me his lapel pins and some camis and just stuff over the years. And it's something that I always wanted to do. And shortly after I graduated high school from small town Texas, I joined the Corps.
Yeah. Which side did you go? You went to basic over at in on
Pendleton.
Lejeune, or did you go over to
Pendleton.
Pendleton?
Yeah, Pendleton, MCRD San Diego. Then I went
Yeah.
through SOI and everything in Pendleton, so California.
So how many years did you do? But I this is for the guests. I know you guys. I know all you guys, man. So but this is for everybody just to get to know you and to know that you're smiling right now if they're not listening, if they're not watching you
Is
on
he?
YouTube. So,
I'm smiling.
but yeah, but more a little bit more
So,
how it goes through basic training and then what decided you to get out and when you guys joined Blackwater. I was actually leaving and going to GRS when you guys were pretty much joining at that time. But what was that transition like? What was and why did you decide to do the contracting?
so, um, I'm a machine gunner by trade, is what I am in the Marine Corps, and
Yeah.
then I'm also security forces. I was with FAST, and I did 4 years active duty, and then I got out of the Marine Corps in October, November. I was in vetting. December, I was in Iraq. That's
So
how
you
fast.
so you just jumped out and that was '05 is when you signed up when you
Oh
signed with
04.
04, and then they got you in through. Yeah, because we
No,
yeah
no, I was there in Baghdad at the man camp in December of '04.
oh, because you came in right at Christmas time when the man camp was just going up, and we didn't have any porches, and guys were falling off the second story,
Oh yeah.
second stories.
Look, whenever I first got there, we had the men's warehouse with
Yeah,
the gentleman that I'm speaking of.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
legendary that was in there.
Yeah, and that was it. It was funny because that was an improvement because I remember we were living in tents when I got there early '04, and then we were stealing KBR trailers and just piling onto them because we couldn't we couldn't get any, so we just break into them and then sleep in them. And they finally gave us a man camp, but that was good times, man. And I really does. It was a time that, and I don't know if you feel this way. I certainly do. That at the time it was monotonous doing the same thing over and over where you're going out in the red zone. But looking back now, it's like, man, we had some exciting days. And of course you had your own exciting days, which is what we're going to talk about. But when you're at Blackwater there, and how was that getting there in '05? And there were some of us guys that thought we were pretty salty, had been there for 6, 7, 8 months at that time, even longer. But what was that coming in from the Marine Corps, coming in and transitioning into Blackwater, and did it feel like it fit, man?
Well, it's back whenever I went through the vetting process, the attrition rate was really, really high.
Yeah,
So just to make it through the vetting was outstanding in itself. And when you look at the caliber of guys that were working with me, I felt a little out of place. And you know, made it through, no issues. Deployed with them to Baghdad. Stayed mainly out of Baghdad. I did go down to Hill and Najaf for just a
okay,
minute, and then the rest of my time was out of Baghdad. I started out on not the ambassador detail, but one of the other ambassador details
sure.
of the career. And then I went from there down to Najaf for a little bit. Then I came back up and I was on the startup of Raven 2-3.
Gotcha.
Well,
So when the
I,
TST teams are starting, and for those guys, those were our QRF teams. Since the military was, we were getting too big, the military couldn't support us, so we had to give our own TST or tactical support teams, QRF teams. So, no, good
I,
stuff, man.
yeah, I was gonna ask when you say that you felt out of place there and that type of thing. This is, we'll get into some difficult questions like this, but the first of which, at least for me, and this is just what I've heard, right, as a civilian from guys that I've interviewed who were spec ops vets at that time, there was a stigma from people of Chris's caliber, like Army Ranger contractors, or even just Army Rangers there at the time, Navy SEALs, that they go, and I've heard this, so this is just things that I've heard, that we were getting the job done, and then some of these Blackwater guys came in who were completely unqualified. They were clowns, and they screwed everything up. I just want to know your perspective on that as someone who was on the ground.
Well, so I literally left one uh, thing and went straight to the other. I was out of the Corps for less than a month. So what I mean by that, it was kind of strange for me to be there, a little humbling in that aspect is I don't come from a special operations background. I'm a Marine machine gunner. We got back from Afghanistan not too long before I got out. So I caught the initial invasion, came home, went to Afghanistan, came home, and then went right back to Blackwater. So, I mean, the stigma of us doing things that wasn't legit, a lot of times you had people that, hey, they did something stupid. Hey, who do you work for? Oh, I work for Blackwater. So there was a lot of stuff that got dumped on us that wasn't necessary by us. But don't get me wrong, everybody has their own issues.
I
And
know.
so,
Yeah, I agree.
but I mean, you got to think a lot of things that wasn't even anything to do with us was getting dumped on us at that time.
No, it was tough because we had a 6 year special ops that you had to be when we joined, when the first class came through, and then just the sheer numbers we couldn't fill that, so we had to lower it and lower it. And I would say lower it, I just mean the special ops requirement went to 3, then it went to 1, then it went, hey, did you have an infantry background, which is still great? Did you? And then it went to later on to where it was, hey, did you drive down BIOP one time when you were with the mechanic crew? And it did, but it had nothing to do with the person, the individual. It was the contract. The contract was just got too huge, and Blackwater took most of it. So it's hard to get 3,000 special ops guys when there's a war going on. And we did. I saw that too, but I saw a lot of great infantry grunts, and I was one before as a ranger as well that did an excellent job. But it no, and Ian, that's a valid question because I had that bitch when I was in Baghdad at times too. But you guys worked through it, and obviously you were there on that TST team, which had a lot of old salty guys that I knew on it. So you must have done something right, brother. Aside from smile, don't smile. Stop smiling. And you system breathe through. You're all right, man.
Dustin, I know that you can't get into the actual incident itself, which I fully understand because, and for the audience, I want to explain this as well. Because after the fact, as someone who served time in prison, anything you say
Yeah,
could then be used against you, which I wouldn't want to be in your shoes during that. So I fully get it. And even just like for journalistic integrity purposes, I get how the audience may feel like we want to hear it from you, but just the issues at hand. So as someone who spent years really investigating things, Gina, what could you say about the incident that people should know?
First of all, just to set the stage about how controversial this is, I talked to their lawyers the whole time that I was, researching this because remember they went through three trials. Well,
hmm
Nick went through three, but they were, the rest of them were doing the appellate process. And so we were making this podcast while there was still litigation going on around this case, and I checked
And when
very
you say that, you mean your podcast. I just want the audience to know we're not talking
yes.
about
So
this
we did a
podcast.
podcast
Yeah.
called Raven 23 Presumption of Guilt, to just get the story out about what really happened. And I talked to all of their lawyers, and the case was so politically charged, and the government had just gone so far off the reservation about this that they told me, they're never going to speak to you about the incident because, we don't want them to say something that's not in their sworn statements, and then the government will come back and charge
sure.
them with something else because it was literally that vindictive. I don't know if Nick Slatton told you this, but they initially decided not to charge him with anything because he was inside, and I think he took two shots. Could not have shot the person that he was charged
Yeah,
with murdering. But anyway, he was charged with manslaughter initially. They let the statute of limitations expire on his charges. And then when they realized, we kind of want him back in the case, they were like, oh God, we let the statute of limitations expire. They went to him and said, hey, if you let us charge you with this, we won't charge you with murder. And he said no,
hmm
and went and had and appealed it. And the appeals court said, no, you cannot charge him again. So they went back and invented this whole theory of the case about how he shot the
yeah,
driver of the white Kia when there is no way, if you believe the laws of physics, that he could have shot that guy. But they literally charged him with murder for someone who the FBI had told the father of this victim, Paul Slough shot your son. And Jeremy Ridgway shot your wife in the white Kia. So for 7 years, they were telling the father, and they knew what the actual facts were, but they went and charged him with murder and put him in prison for life. That's the kind of behavior that we're dealing with here. So their lawyers were like shutting me down at every turn when I asked if I could interview them about the incident. So when I wrote the book, I took the statements that they made when they came back in from the red zone. And that is what we stuck to the whole time. I mean, Tommy Vargas and some of the other people who weren't charged, I also interviewed to get
yep,
more information. But when I talk to these guys, we always stick to the statement because it is that politically charged. And when they got out of prison, we had a total uproar from the UN and worldwide media talking about how they shouldn't have been pardoned. So we were very, and then Joe Biden gets back in,
yeah,
and we're
yeah.
terrified that he is going to, reverse what President Trump did. So that's the reason that we're kind of paranoid about it. Well, really paranoid.
Fully understand that.
No, it will be for some time, until till this So time does definitely heals. I think it does, but
I just want
I
to,
do
if I
believe
don't
that.
want to interrupt you, Chris, but I just want to make sure I get one thing in here because it's just a good time for it. I want to just make this point because you made it to me, Gina. Before you got involved in this, you had the preconceived notion of a lot of people that you said, oh, these guys are guilty, right? And then you actually got to know them and you said, this is not at all what is being presented to us.
Yeah, that's right. And so I heard about the case from a friend of Dustin's dad, who was I was dating at the time. And you'll see in the book how it all occurred, but he saw the fact that they had been sentenced in 2015. And he said, because I am an investigative journalist, he said, you got to do something about this. And I said, forget it. I don't know anything about foreign policy. I don't know anything about the Iraq War. I was totally against it. I was against the use of mercenaries, is what I called them, but contractors. So I really didn't want to do it for several months, but he just kept insisting and pushing. And the other thing that that I told you was they had been, by the time I came along, they had been totally just insulted and blackballed in the media for 7 years. So when I started thinking like, maybe I can do this or maybe I'll look into it, I told my boyfriend, I said, there's no way these people are going to talk to me. I mean, I just spent 17 years in Los Angeles, in the media in Los Angeles. And when they hear that, they're going to say, no way, we're not talking to her. Because I mean, I think it was you. Somebody told me that they had been run off, that some reporters had been run off. Oh, it was out of Sparta, when they tried to come in and interview people about Nick. And I didn't know that at the time, but I just said, there's no way these people will talk to me. So he interceded with Dustin's dad for me and said, she's cool, you should meet her. And so they gave me the trial transcripts. And I said, okay, well, I've done criminal law before. I've done a lot of investigations in this, and I've actually won some investigative awards. So I'll go ahead and look at this. And if there's anything in it that looks like I could do something, then I will talk to my friends at CNN, New York Times, whatever, and see if anybody will do it. Because I wasn't even in the media at that time. I had written a book and I had quit my job at Reuters to write books and do movies and things like that. So I really didn't even have an outlet to go to, but I just kept getting turned down everywhere. And people were just had the same attitude as me. I mean, once I looked at it and realized that there was something wrong, the Brady violations where the prosecution had hidden evidence, the total, what I just described about Nick, the vindictiveness, the judge in the case who just, I mean, he was completely incompetent. Um, I knew something was wrong, and but I couldn't get anyone else to look at it because they all said the same thing, like, no way, I'm not touching this. Blackwater, Eric Prince, forget it. So yeah, I had a pretty bad attitude about it. But I went and met him. I met his family and then got the court briefs. And then I said, okay, this is wrong. What's happened here? But I want to meet him to make sure that, there's not something I don't understand. So he was the first person that I met of the four guys. I went up to Memphis and we met each other at the prison.
Okay.
So yeah, and then once I met him, I was like, I'm all in. This is crazy. This guy is not guilty. So yeah, so that's how it all came about. But it was a long process. It's not
Sure.
like I changed my mind overnight. I did a lot of research in it. And yeah, so
Did you decide, or was there determination that hey, we're going to do the book? Because to me that is probably the best medium to get it out there, so it's not slanted right or left. Was that when you guys were still in prison, or was that when you got out? Like,
no.
okay,
No, I mean, we couldn't get anybody to do a story. That was the
okay,
thing that was so terrible was, I mean, I had an agent that represented me for my other book, my Netflix book, because really am a financial reporter. I am not, I don't do foreign policy and
dude.
war and stuff like that. I covered media in Los Angeles and government at some other outlets, but So I kept taking it around. I took it to my agent and I said, "This is really a terrible thing that's going on. I want to do a book about this. Can you represent me?" And he said, "No." He said, I am morally opposed to this." And I just couldn't believe that he said that. I was
Yeah.
furious about it. I was like, "You know me. You know that I would not come to you with some slanted story." So, we couldn't get anybody to touch it. The people who did war books, I went to them as well and I said, "This is a great story." And they would say, "Nope, it doesn't have an ending yet." So, so me and the guy who,
Okay.
there was who's now my business partner, Michael Flaherty, who was the co-founder of Walden Media, which used to do a lot of kids movies with Disney, right? Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and all this. He
Yeah.
came to me after I wrote a podcast about my Netflix book, and he said, "Hey, I want to make a TV show out of that." And I said, "Yeah, okay. But I have this other thing that I'm doing that nobody will help me do." And I explained it to him, and he was right all on board with it. So, and he's evangelical Christian. He's got really close ties to the conservative media, which I did not. And so he got on board and he started taking that thing. We did, we had some things that we wrote, and he was taking it everywhere and saying, "We got to get these guys out of prison. This is a total travesty of justice," and all this stuff. And so when he got involved, that's when we started to get some traction. And we
Okay.
still couldn't get any media except for them. So we made this podcast to explain to everybody what happened, because it's so confusing. It was 3 trials. It was still going on when we made the podcast. We didn't know how it was going to end. So that's what happened. And then after they got out, after all that stuff that I told you about, the UN and the media just having a total uproar about them getting out, I think the idea was that they wanted to tell their story so that, because when they first got out, I mean, you need to address this, but everybody knew who they were. You just Google their names and that story is going to follow them around everywhere. So we wanted to do it because of that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Dustin, you got anything? Because
Well,
I mean, it is interesting how this all has come about so far.
one of the things to always keep in mind with the way that we were done, if anybody else would have been done that way that wasn't a political job like happened to us,
Sure.
it wouldn't have flown. The body count is completely messed up. There's stuff from before, after they put an ad out to pull stuff in to see if anybody was hurt or anything else. The lead Iraqi investigator had ties to, I believe it was Jam and Badra. And so you've got this guy that made a statement to Blackwater that said, "Hey, for the right money, this will go away." And they said no. Well, they told everybody in our jury that there was nobody that had any ties to terrorist organizations. They sold this like it happened downtown Dallas or
Yeah.
DC
Yeah.
or, wherever. And instead of doing what anybody else would have had the rights to have happen to them, I mean, they just did whatever they had to get us locked up.
Yeah.
How did you're very still, it's difficult to get to talk. There's things you're concerned, and I get where you're coming from that you can say. How do you push the story? How do you get them and get people on their side when they really can't say anything? And it's been a few years now, and you're still, it's hard for you to talk about. It's hard. You're worried about what to say, and I get it. I completely understand. So I guess this is for Gina. How did you even get it ball rolling? Because you're like, we got this great story, but we can only tell you what you already know. All you have to do is
Well,
read. So what did you do? How'd you sell it? I don't want to say sell it as a bad word, but
no, I
how
mean,
did
yeah,
you?
we had to do that. That's, you got to get somebody interested in it. But, um, well, I mean, if I have about, I'm just estimating here, but I think I have 60,000 pages
Yeah.
of testimony and reports and things like that. And so what I have, I believe to be the most accurate representation of what happened in Nisour Square, which is their statements when they came. They made
Came back.
oral statements when they came
Yep.
in, and then 2 days later, they all made written statements as well. And then I went back and I interviewed everybody who I can get a hold of from Raven 2-3. There were 19 guys, in the convoy. So there were a lot of people who wanted to talk about it. And unlike what happened with some of the other people who were pardoned, there was not one person who did not receive a government deal. Like the ones who made the government deals testified against these guys, but every other person on that convoy was willing to talk and supported them and said that they did nothing wrong. So, I had a lot of input from them. So I feel like in the book that there's a lot of detail about the incident, just because I was able to put it together, from all of the things that I had.
Sure.
And it's much more accurate because we're, how many years later is it? 2007. So we're almost 20 years later. That's accurate. That's what happened, not what people are going to say now. But and the other thing was when I went to HarperCollins and wanted to sell it, I was like, oh, we're going to do it like 13 Hours in Benghazi. It was so successful. We're going to do that, because it's a great book. I studied it. I thought it was wonderful. And I was like, this is equally as exciting as that.
Sure.
So, but we took it in there and people and the publishers were saying, it's been a pretty long time since the Iraq War. That's already been done. What we really want you to talk about is just the national attitude and like your experience as a person who's, liberal, who votes in a liberal way and has liberal beliefs, and how you got on board with this and what you face. Like, because it is a very weird experience to be thinking strategically that way. Like, every time that somebody who was, kind of like on my side of the aisle would say, yeah, that seems wrong, I'd be like, yay, which is stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we're so polarized now. The fact that
Yeah.
you can't objectively look at this particular incident through, you have to look through the lens of if you're a Republican or Democrat. The
Right.
fact that the world has become that is absolutely ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like if you're for the pardon of these guys, like what would that have to do with maybe your stance on issues like abortion or healthcare? Like but everybody has to be in a box now. It's a very
Right.
strange time in this country.
Yeah. So the book is a lot about that too. It's about, the fact that I knew, when I was doing this, there's a scene in the book where I talk about when Mike Flaherty got us on Pete Hegseth's show, and we went on together, and I'm standing there outside. It was right before Nick Slatton's sentencing in 2019, and I really just did not want to go. I wanted him to do it, but since we were both doing the podcast, they wanted both of us to come on. So I just remember standing there outside and going, like looking up at the Fox building in the dark and going, my career is over. I can't believe that I'm doing this, but I mean, the thing that was great was they understood what the problem was this is a due process issue.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you work for. That should not be part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be the same as punishing somebody for working at McDonald's because you don't eat meat or something like that. It's just idiotic. And, I was putting stuff out on my Facebook page. Like I was literally posting pages from the testimony and saying to journalists who were my friends, look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. And no one, I was sending letters to the ombudsman at the New York Times and the Washington Post and AP. I was pointing out the fact that AP was literally reprinting pieces of the DOJ's press release in its stories. And then everyone would pick up the AP. And
That's how it always works. Yeah. Everybody just copies and pastes.
This is insane. You guys are not doing any kind of reporting, but it was like silence. I got nothing. So the book is a lot about that too, just about the fact that when you're standing there telling the truth into a void, and the only people who are interested in hearing it are the people on the other side of the aisle, which
Yeah.
was a very weird experience for me.
Did going through all that process there, well, I guess first thing is, and I wanted to ask where you're saying that, are those friends that maybe disagreed with you in the early days? Have they come back and now that you've got completed the project, have they seen the light? I guess we say with this story and say, are they still? Because Mitchell Zukoff was the same as you. I admire the hell out of both of you because he is Boston, Massachusetts liberal, totally to the bone, but he was able to maintain objectivity, which it sounds like you did as well, which is admirable because, like you said at the beginning of the show, I'm not objective at all. We just admit that there's some
We said
weaknesses
that
there.
before I hit record for the
Exactly. Okay, we
audience.
did it anyway. But now that you've got the finished product and it's excellent and it's very well put together, and the guys have all come out and done their various. They've talked on shows. I know that Sean, they've been on Sean's show. We've had. Help me out. Who do we have on
Nick
ours?
Slatton, Nick
Nick.
Slatton.
But have the people like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. You were right the whole time, or is it still just blinders, blank face? Nah, I don't care to believe you. I'm going to stay in my lane and just keep driving on and drinking the Kool-Aid from whichever Kool-Aid aisle you're drinking from.
I mean, I think that they agree that that I've supported the story, but it's still the attitude is like, okay, that was 5 years
Oh,
ago.
now
Yeah.
now it's under the rug. Now it's,
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see, if I get to talk about this in any other, in any of the outlets that completely shut me down, then I'll say, yes, yes, they believe me.
I
and
would hope so. I mean,
I would hope so
the
too.
very
Yeah.
little that we could do with this outlet, like under no impression that we're as big as like the Sean Hannitys of the world, but I do really despise the news media as a whole. I mean, this is just the industry, but the fact that everybody jumps onto the hot new thing
Yeah.
every 5 minutes, so it's like, we're talking about like Sydney Sweeney and jeans as opposed to talking about this very important issue. And I'm sure you guys will get bumped from like a primetime news slot to talk about nonsense. That's kind of how the media works, whether you're on Fox News or CNN.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, think about this, the irony of this. Everybody's so upset about due process, about the people who are
I,
getting deported.
there it is.
Where were
Yeah.
you
It was
7 years ago?
yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Um I Dustin, if you could, moving past that now a little bit, and we can come back to it because Gina, you've got great insight, and I love hearing. And authors always know how to do interviews; they're freaking awesome. Love 'em. But what's going on now, buddy? Since have you been able and like Nick? It sounds like to me he is. I mean, we all have our demons. You guys even have some demons that none of us, even downrange, can even relate to, but it sounds like he's doing he's getting his life back together. Things are in a positive note. He's moving forward. And I guess personally, I think a lot of the veterans that listen to the show, a lot of the veteran family members would like to know, how are you doing, man? How
Well,
now today?
so needless to say, my life has been an interesting ride. You know, um,
Yeah.
obviously nobody ever plans to go to prison and
No.
then all of a sudden go from in prison one day to, okay, you're free, take off. And so, thankfully we had a lot of folks help us when we got out. Without the people that helped us in the beginning, I mean, it would have been brutal because you go for 6 years, 2 months of not making any money at all, except for when you work for Unicorn. I think you got like $10 a month or something stupid like that. But you go from not making any money at all to all of a sudden you're free, and not only do you have to transition back into civilian life from being in, prison and everything, but the world to change. The crazy thing is I walk out and everybody's got to have mask on. Well, I had
The,
to
the
go to the rest.
craziest time to be
That
pardoned,
would be,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
to go to the restroom and I had to keep a mask on walking into a convenience station, and this was my first time, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going back to the prison. They're gonna think I'm robbing this place. But so it was absolute crazy times whenever I got out. And obviously there's been highs and lows,
Sure.
but I've started a small business of myself, and
Great.
Good deal.
I work a lot, entirely too much, and I'm just trying to rebuild my life.
Understandable, man.
Yeah, that's all you can do, and that's as a Marine, we wouldn't expected anything less. You just get up and keep moving forward, and
So
that's what you guys do. I didn't, I don't remember, brother. Do you have a family? Do you have
I do.
wife and kids?
No, I've got two kids. I've got a daughter that's in college, and then I've got a son that's almost in high school.
That's the relationship you able that must have been difficult, man. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine.
that was the hardest part. I mean, to be honest with you, prison is not much different than the military, except for you don't get to go home. They tell
It's
you where to
true.
be, what to do, how to do it, and as long as you mesh with the rules, I mean, it's not hard. But it's having to have my kids come in and into the visitation room. Well, then having to watch them cry as they leave. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was hard on me, but walking back from visitation back to the unit, knowing that it'll be the next time that my ex-wife could bring them from East Tennessee to Memphis, which is not a short
No,
drive.
it's a long way.
And so, getting to see my kids, getting to see my family come visit me time to time. I mean, like I said, it was a rough go, but all you can do is keep moving forward.
And you did. And you did. And Gina, when you came to, you must have been almost like a counselor, like a therapist almost coming in and seeing the guys and just giving them hope. When did you? Because you came and saw them when they were in.
You'd have to
Right.
ask him about that. I mean, I didn't really know what we were.
Well, so in the beginning, we reached out to a lot of folks and trying to get help. And whenever you're used to being the doer, the one that
Yeah.
goes out and does, and you're literally handicapped sitting there, you can write an email if they're on your email list, or you can write a letter, or you get 300 minutes a month to make a phone call. Excuse me, to make a phone call. So you're real limited on what you can do, how you can do it, and everything else. And it was awesome when Gina came on board because she looked at it and um, whenever you read something and you see it for what it is versus the
Yeah.
stigma, everything else to it, I mean, it just blows me away how it can happen. I mean, I received a 30-year sentence. Automatic weapon, it's a 924C use of an automatic weapon and or incendiary explosive
That's right.
device, which carries the 30-year mandatory minimum. I got 1 day for everything else, but for the government issued weapons is why I received a 30-year sentence.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this interview with Dustin Heard and Gina Keating. And we're not up to this point in the interview yet because it's way later in the interview. But Dustin himself is a big fan of Fort Scott
Yeah.
Munitions, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool to hear.
It was. It asked me to say hi to the guys there, Ryan and Robbie and Preston and Steve and all the guys there down at the shop. And he shoots Fort Scott munitions, which why wouldn't he? It's the best ammo by far out there. So hey, just another thing cool about Dustin, man. So that was awesome here. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that until today. And
Yeah,
now
it came out of
it's cool.
nowhere where it
Yeah.
was just like, I love those guys at Fort Scott Munitions.
Yeah, go tell them hi, man. Oh shit. Yeah, sure. I'll go tell them hi. Good deal. You shoot their ammo? Yeah, I'll get you a case. So Ryan, you owe him a case, man. If you're listening to this, Ryan Kraft, send Dustin Hurd a case of 9 mil, please.
It was funny too because, I'm not to be a spoiler here, but I do kind of end the interview being like, anything else you want to get into? Nope. But then I was glad he at least got into that. So
Yeah.
before we continue, Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to tumble upon impact, TUI, and soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammo was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that it received the same results with every pull of the trigger. Fort Scott Munitions is available throughout privately owned businesses in all 50 states. You can go to the dealer locator, but you'll get the best deal through us when you go to fsm.com and you use the exclusive promo code Battleline. That'll get you 15% off most items on the store, fsm.com. Promo code Battleline, one word, Battleline, of course. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline podcast. All that information is in the description. And with that, let's get right back to this interview. I wanted to ask you something in terms of the fighting to get pardoned thing, because, and Chris knows this, listeners of the podcast know this. It's kind of much like with the stuff Gina was saying. When it comes to President Trump, I actually would say I'm very objective. He's done a ton of things I don't like, and I will tell you I don't like. He's done some things I like, and I will tell you that as well. I actually think it's fair to say there's no president we've had besides President Trump who would have pardoned you guys. I think of, when we had like Gary Brugman on the podcast, and he came on before getting the full pardon. And truthfully, and I think I said it to his face, I was like, this is never going to happen, man. I really didn't think it would ever happen. And when he got that pardon around the same time that you guys did, which, former Border Patrol, those who don't know, it was like this wouldn't have happened under anyone but President Trump. But to the other side of that, I will say, right around the same time you guys got pardoned, Clint Lawrence gets pardoned, Eddie Gallagher gets pardoned, Major Matt Goldstein gets pardoned. And I think the problem is all of these cases got lumped together. And then rather than people looking at the individual things that happened in each of these cases, I think for a lot of people, the narrative was, wow, President Trump just freed a bunch of war criminals. And you talked about Pete Hegseth, and I know Pete Hegseth fought for this. Some of the guys who were pardoned, I will openly say, like Eddie Gallagher, I don't think should have been pardoned. That's just my opinion. But did you guys get the stigma of that? Because do you think it was a worse stigma because all of you kind of got lumped into the same thing, and it was just all of these guys are war criminals, and Trump just gave them all a full pardon?
To be honest with you, I'm damn proud to be here. So they can lump me in any group that they want to lump me, and
Sure.
I'm happy to be back with my kids and my family. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that just really pisses me off about that is, and Pete is great about talking about this, and I think it gets very misunderstood, and that is that, if you want to put these people, like this in prison who are doing their jobs, who are told to do a job, who are put into an environment that is a lot different from what, all of us in America were told, and not blame the people who created that total cluster. I mean, I don't even know what to say to you because I never went to Baghdad, but all of the research that I did showed me that they didn't know what the hell they were doing most of the time. You get over there and they have that surge, and it's like, okay, are they going to hate us more or is it going to be better? And for months during the Bush administration, we were all told that this is going great. It's so fabulous. We're, everybody's so happy, and we're going to, hearts and minds, we're going to be building schools and all this stuff. It was nothing like that. The number of casualties in 2007 was greater than at any time during the war. And it wasn't just, American troops or, coalition forces that were responsible for that. It was the Iraqis killing each other and doing horrendous things. So when you're putting people in a situation like that and expecting them to, I mean, I don't know what they expected. I just think that's completely unrealistic. I mean, I was completely against the war in the first place, but it made me even more angry when I found out that the troops were not being equipped properly. Their vehicles were not being armored. They were, being told to do things that made absolutely no sense. And, this kind of stuff happens. I'm not saying that that was the case with Raven 2-3 because they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They acted how they were trained. And the problem with this case, which is different from the other cases that you mentioned, is that the government decided for some reason that this case was going to be the exemplar of how the United States delivered American justice in Iraq. because that's basically what Paul Bremer had set up. He set it up so that anybody who did anything wrong in Iraq wasn't going to be charged or tried in Iraq. They were going to be charged in the United States in the federal criminal system. So if you're going to do that, then you actually have to abide by the rules of the federal criminal system. You have to have evidence. You have to have due process. You have to have a presumption of innocence. You can't just make up stuff that you think sounds good so that you can get them put in prison. And there was an element of that in almost every single one of those cases that you mentioned. The government was leaning on other members of those outfits to get them to testify against the person who they targeted and said, this is the guy who's going to go to prison. So there isn't, and I'm not going to, since I don't know a whole lot about all those cases, I'm not going to say definitively that they should or should not have been pardoned. But whenever there is a lapse of the criminal process, that case goes away. You can't bring it. And that was what made me so angry about this one, was that it was so flagrant. They just made up their minds that these guys were going to go to prison and nothing was going to stand in the way of that. So, yeah.
No, it is. It's the Iraq, and being there myself for a long time, we're off and on. War's war. You can't. You got to defend yourself, and you've got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your buddies. And in your guys' case, from what I know and work in that same area, yeah, that, that area is a shithole sometimes, and you were doing what you had to do.
Yeah, but what one thing that people don't ever take into consideration is we were responding to a car
You're
bomb.
responding to a car bomb. You're
Yeah.
responding
I
to
mean,
attack.
this isn't like we're just going out on a patrol. We're actually responding to an attack on venue.
Right.
And that's what made very little sense. If at the worst case scenario, you guys lose your jobs, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's how we all were. But being charged, it was ridiculous. And going to that, Gina, the judge, you mentioned the judge being incompetent. Was he incompetent, or did he have an agenda? Did
No,
he have an agenda?
okay, you can take it from me,
I'll take your opinion.
or
I
you
just want
can,
your opinion.
or you can take the opinion of a George Washington University law professor who wrote a paper about this guy and said, this guy right here is the reason that federal judges should not have lifetime tenure. I'm not joking. I actually, when I read the transcripts and saw some of the things that he said, it was so, it was just not becoming of a member of the federal judiciary. And I thought, who is this guy? Because he's pretty old when he got the case. Judges don't have a mandatory retirement age, but they have something that an age where they take senior status, and that's 69, I think, 69 or 70. And when he took the case, which he literally took it from another judge, I thought, well, why did he take this? Because this, the procedure is, the case is going to take 2 or 3 years for sure. And he's going to be past senior status. So why would he do that? So I started researching him, and I came up with that scholarly paper by that guy who had written it probably 3 or 4 years before he got the Raven 2-3 case. And I was like, okay, this explains everything. I don't know what's wrong with him, but there's something wrong with him, and there's something wrong enough with him that somebody wrote a scholarly paper about what an idiot he is, and he was thrown off the case that they wrote the paper about. There was a first judge in 200 years to get thrown off a case by the appellate court. So you don't have to believe me.
No,
Believe the expert at George Washington Law School, by the way, who would not speak to me. I called him up and I said, hey, I want to talk to you for my podcast about this guy. And he was like, no, I've said everything in the paper that I am going to say. So just use that. And so I had an actor read the stuff that he had written, because everyone was terrified of that guy because he was so vindictive.
Wow. No, you got an angel on your shoulder there, Dustin. You really do. I'm tell you what, you're more than that.
I'm just doing my job. This is how you do a job when you're a journalist.
You know what? That's what military guys that do things that maybe people consider heroic, they say the same thing. I just want to let you know.
I know.
I just want to let you. Dustin, I guess the last thing
Last thing
for,
from you, because I got
for
plenty
me, he's
more.
got plenty. And my more will come up. Ian's a better planner than me when we do. I just kind of wing it a little bit. Um, yeah, when when uh when you got home, I always wanted to ask, and I didn't ask Nick this. I wanted to, but when you guys got back from that deployment, I mean, you guys left, we're gone. Blackwater sent you home. What was your feeling when you stepped back in the States? And did you think this was going to blow up like it did, or did you think that okay, this is going to go away and we might lose our clearances, we might lose our jobs, but did you ever think it would you would go to prison? Did you ever think this is going? Oh my gosh, we are in so much trouble, and we're
No,
we're done.
so we knew it was going to be a big deal whenever CNN got a hold of it and put it on loop, and loop and loop and loop and
Loop it.
loop, and just kept going and drove it for, I mean, there was nothing else going on, so they'd put it back on. And the crazy thing is there's a video from the tower directly thereafter, and it does not match up with the theory of the government's
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And you're talking that tower shot was within minutes. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just wild for the whole process.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it'd be hard to think that. And you're right. There's no evidence after they go clean those casings on the ground are like 50-cent pieces. You ain't gonna find a casing in the world after
Well,
after a battle.
midway through trial, or actually right at the end of trial, they actually turned over to us casings that were up on top of the bus stop, the bus
Yeah, yeah.
terminal down there.
That mhm.
There was some on the ground, and then there was a lot up on top of it. And then the Department of State actually found they used our sworn statements and went out and found brass at the locations that we said that we were doing or taking fire
Yep,
from.
yep.
Well, you had the FBI come in 2 weeks later, and then they went on this big hunt, and then you
No,
had.
they came in a month
A
later.
month later.
I
Yeah.
was just looking at it.
So anyway, so they came in a little bit later. Well, then you had guys that were Army guys that testified that they went and did all this investigation during like the first trial, only to come out in the second or third trial that they never actually went to the scene.
Yeah.
They just took the word of somebody else that
Somebody,
told
yeah.
them. And then, like when the Iraqi military and the Iraqi police said that they picked up pillowcases full of brass. And there was also a statement that it was like the Spartacus 300 that there were so many bullets flying through the air that they couldn't even see daylight. I mean, it was just crazy some of the things that was said.
Oh, they said that that people were shooting out of airplanes.
I didn't
Okay.
hear that one.
Yeah,
That's
they
a new
were
one to me.
that. Let me tell you something. That was in the grand jury testimony. Okay.
Wow.
It was crazy, the stuff. I mean, the government was just like, so they were trying desperately to keep people who were saying crazy stuff like that away from the grand jury. And in fact, the DOJ got in trouble because there was a fifth guy who was initially going to be tried with them, Donald Ball, and his lawyer, who was a former assistant U.S. attorney, said, okay, after he looked at the grand jury testimony, he was like, listen, you cannot hide evidence that they were shot at from the grand jury. You have under the guise of saying, okay, well, all your sworn statements got leaked, so they had a really big problem trying to bring the case because they weren't allowed to use those sworn statements that they made this 2 days after they, had the incident. They
Yep,
went
yep,
into
yep.
the State Department and, you know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
right? You go in and you can,
Yep.
it's just exactly like an officer involved shooting. So it's not anything special. It happens in the United States all the time. The way that your contract works is that you can come in and make an accurate representation of what happened in the shooting, and that will not be used against you in a criminal court as long as you don't lie. That's basically what
Mhm.
what was going on here. And
Then you
everybody's like, "Oh, they had what am I trying to say? That you couldn't be tried. They had immunity." No, it's the same thing that cops do when
Yeah.
they have an officer involved shooting. There was no special anything. But what happened was those statements got leaked to the media within like days. His statement, Paul Slough's statement, and it goes out in the media everywhere. And so when they try to come back and try them a year later, everybody had said, "Oh yeah, I saw those statements," and it was all over the media. So they,
The RSO was
yeah,
I mean
yeah,
RSO
someone
and
from
the
the
ARSO was leaking. I mean I can
yes,
see that
yes.
definitely with
Okay,
State
and so
Department.
I actually asked, there's something in the book about that where I was trying to follow the chain about who leaked it and why they would do that. And most likely it was somebody at the State Department in
Mhm.
Washington who was trying to go, yeah, it's a clean shoot. Don't be mad at us. But, it just got messed up. But anyway, so you're not allowed to show any of that in a court of law, right? So anyone who is testifying based on their statements, even if they saw them, that's considered tainted. So they had a really difficult time bringing the case simply because everybody had seen those statements,
And
right?
throw it out. Throw the case. These guys are
It,
good.
it
Throw
was
the shit
it
out.
was initially thrown out by the first judge, and that was part of the reason. But the prosecutors tried to get around that by going, okay, well, it's tainted, so we're going to have a taint team come in, just remove everything. So what they ended up doing was getting an FBI agent to go to the grand jury and testify. But oh boy, guess what they got to do? They got to take out all the exculpatory evidence and just present what they wanted. So they like cherry picked all this
Yeah.
stuff that made them look as bad as possible. And they shopped that to the grand jury and said, this is what happened. Well, when Donald Ball's lawyer saw the transcripts of the grand jury, he was like, no, you have left out the witnesses, like you're saying, using the testimony of this one witness who said that, they were shooting in a hail of bullets, but then you're not talking about the fact that this same person also idiotically testified that that Blackwater was shooting out of airplanes. So you're taking the stuff that sounds the best and
Yeah.
leaving out the crazy so that they sound like they're really guilty.
Yeah.
So Donald Ball magically gets removed from the case because his lawyer is telling them, if you don't stop that, I am going to file an ethics complaint against you. So anyway, I can't remember what you asked me about, but that was
No, that was it. No,
No.
that was it. I mean, and you went out there and then some. It sounds par for the course with the State Department from what I remember when I worked for them. I didn't really care for the State Department. So
well, and the other thing, I don't know if you had the same experience, but the guy who he was talking about, David Bosligo, was embedded, I guess, I don't know what the right word is. He was assigned to the Iraqi National Police, and he was supposedly teaching them how
he's
to, how to run an actual police force that wasn't killing people of the opposite religion, right?
they were doing that a lot.
Or
Yeah.
taking bribes or shaking them down or whatever. So he was supposed to be training these people, and under the guise of, oh, everything's going so great with the surge, he was carrying this story about how, oh, maybe they don't really understand how we do things in America, but but he would never lie about this stuff. Well, then we find out that the guy has an intelligence, like two or three different intelligence files on him where he is selling troop movements to the
Yeah.
Mahdi army and the Badr Corps. The guy, they don't have a picture of him or anything, but he is exactly his resume, his age, everything else matches this guy who was made the investigator of the Raven 2-3 case. And the judge is like, no, we're not going to tell the jury about that. So literally, that is like saying, okay, let's go to Compton and we'll have the Bloods and the Crips, and we'll get the Bloods to investigate the Crips. Okay, that's what that's like.
Which you can.
It's wild.
I didn't. I wasn't aware of that. I've heard that story. I've heard that within the grapevine, and I think you just validated that was true.
Right.
And
Yeah.
And
So
he was testifying that he hated the State Department and he didn't trust them. Do you remember that part?
So, not to switch gears from what she's talking about, but this is to add to it. whenever he came in for a hearing in our trial, he had his jam ring on.
Oh,
And
did,
yeah, we noticed it, and he disappeared, headed back to Iraq immediately thereafter.
wow,
So, I mean, he showed up with his jam ring on.
that's
Like I said,
crazy.
I had a few things that I really want to get into here. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm always kind of jotting stuff. And this is all stuff I was also thinking about in preparation for this interview. So these are really like a few things I had for Dustin in particular. And I know it's like you can't talk about the incident itself, but there are some hard questions that I want to ask you and that I think like other people are thinking about. One of them is the fact that people are going to say, hey, you got the pardon from President Trump. What would make you want to write a book? Because a lot of people are going to say, why even bring more, eyes to this story? And also, why celebrate you guys? Because look, the book does have heroes in the subtitle. And I think people are going to say, unless you have a different perspective on this, that when they look at the people who died in that shooting, they're going to say there were people in the crossfire who probably shouldn't have died in that shooting. Did you have any reservations about putting out a book for people who might say, "Hey, you got a full pardon, just move on with your life. Don't bring any more publicity to something like this."
So, what about the next guy? The next guy that has something similar like this happen to him? What if it was you that was in the line of duty, whether it's a cop stateside or you're overseas as a soldier or contractor or whatever, and you get done this way? I mean, look, when they violate your rights the way that they did ours, obviously we want to tell our story, and it's not necessarily for us,
Sure.
but it's if we don't say something and say what happened to us during this, then it's easy for them to do it to the next guy because the last guy didn't say anything.
Well, it's accountability.
Absolutely.
It is, and that's what Gina was trying to do the whole time. And now you have the opportunity to hold people accountable. And sometimes this is the only way to do it because the government sure as hell doesn't do it every time for you. So I get, believe me, but I get that. I completely understand. But that's a valid question. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, man, do you really want to open up this can of worms again? What if it backfires? And I know that's in the back of your head because of what you said when we started the show. Hey, I can only talk about this much. There's
Yeah.
always going to be that reservation there, but that's admirable that you are, brother. You're willing to stick your neck out. But I promise you, now the book's out. 14, 15 years down the road, it gets, I promise you, it gets easier. I was in your shoes when I first did my first interview too. I didn't want to say a word. Like, holy
So then
shit.
another
What I
thing I
do?
wanted to ask you about, I feel like speaking with you now, it's not as much like this, but just being honest, right? People look at the picture of you on this book, and I think people see the pictures of you more so in photos than looking at you now. You are an intimidating looking guy. And then one thing in particular, though, I mean, you can't see the full neck tattoo here, but you can in the pictures online. I mean, you have the neck tattoo that says cut here with the dotted line. I think people are just going to look at you and go, this is like a sadistic type of guy. Like, do you regret some of the tattoos that you got? Because I think it can paint you in a negative light.
No, I don't regret them at all. You know where I
Okay. What's
stand.
the meaning behind them though for people who are going to question something like that?
So if you read down below it, obviously it says cut here, but it also says across the top of my chest in the arch, it says give me a soldier's death. In other words, don't put me in a box for the rest of my life.
Sure.
Okay, let me point something out that is also in the book about this was that he had that when I went to visit him the first time, and his wife at the time was there and she left. It's because so when you go to prison, they have about 3 days when you can see them during the week. And so I went so that I could visit him on all the days that I could. So his wife had to leave because she's a teacher and had to go back to school with the kids, but I could stay. And he told me at that time, he goes, I didn't want her to know this, but he was stabbed multiple times in prison. And and I started thinking about this because they offered him and all the others multiple opportunities to get out of prison. They said, if you'll just plead to something, you can leave now. And they all said, forget it. We didn't do anything wrong. We're not taking these deals. So when I asked him about that, he just said, I don't want to die in a box. And every time I would leave that prison after that, I was terrified because he kept turning down the prosecutors and they didn't want to retry him, that he would end up dead. because it was totally inconvenient for them to try him because every single time they tried them, another thing that they had withheld from the jury would come out. I mean,
Sure.
they withheld the bullets that he was talking about.
Hmm.
They made it so that three times as many people who were actually killed in Nisour Square were on that victim list. They hid or actually destroyed some drone footage that showed the whole incident. That it was they would withheld the fact that the guy who was the lead investigator was selling, you know, troop movements to the insurgency.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
so many things. They suborned perjury of two of the main witnesses. I've never seen anything like this in 40 years as a journalist. It was so bad that these prosecutors really should be in prison.
Yeah.
And
The-
there was no reason for them. They put him in one of the most violent prisons that there is, and Nick Slatton was the other one who I couldn't believe survived because he kept getting beaten while he was in prison, and they were doing everything they could to make him plead, and he refused to do it. And the more that they refused, the more dangerous their lives got. It was horrible.
yeah.
So, that is the origin of the cut me, don't let me die.
Sure. Well, I was going to say the reason I bring up the tattoos, right, just to give some perspective here, right, as being a news guy myself, and you guys know about this, like that news story about the guy who was deported to El Salvador from Maryland a few months ago, as you all remember, I was reporting on it at Salem. No matter what you think of that story, right, people are going to be on different sides of the spectrum. But one of the main things why people were like, this is a gang member, this is a member of MS-13, were the knuckle tattoos, right? And it didn't say MS-13. I know that was a whole thing where it was like this was photoshopped, and then the Trump administration was saying, no, it's not photoshopped. But what he had was like a marijuana leaf, a smiley face, and people were saying, if you know gang tattoos, this is a gang tattoo. And look, I'm a guy with tattoos like on my leg, but it's nothing that would make you say this is a guy who's like affiliated with a gang or something, or same as Chris's. So I just think of right, not from my perspective, but the public's perspective can see something and can shape the narrative of who the person is. Then another thing I wanted to ask you about, right? When we had Nick Slatton on the show, I'm just going to tell you, he said something I completely disagreed with, and I wanted to hear if you agreed with it, if you have the same perspective. Nick said that he is trying to get a petition going that anyone who has been put in prison for something they did during these wars should get a pardon, just like you guys got a pardon. And to me, that sets a very bad precedent. Not you guys, but I think there are people who are in jail for things that they did in war where they just took advantage of the power that they had. And I do think there are guys who uh, try to shoot at civilians, right? Not your incident, once again, but there are those people, just like there are police officers who take advantage of power. There's military guys and contractors who take advantage of power. I don't think those guys should get pardoned. I know that has something to do with Nick's faith, right? How he said we should be a forgiving society. I just want to hear what's your take on that. Do you agree with your brother Nick on that?
So I do, and here's the reason why I do. If you're letting all the terrorists go from the war and you're sending everybody back like that, then at what point, and should it be a pardon? In some cases, no. But at what point does the war need to be over? I mean, if you're letting the enemy go and you're sending those guys home, why would you not look at each case individually? And there is a bunch of the cases out there that are flawed, that have had some stuff similar like mine that's happened. I know Nick champions Calvin Gibbs, and I've read into it some. I've not looked into it all the way, but the deal is at what point in time if you're letting the enemy go, do you not take care of your own?
So,
Well, there's
but you
got
don't think there's anyone in a military prison right now, right? Because we're saying a blanket pardon who would be a danger to society if they were let
Oh
free.
no, it's everything. Every case should be looked at individually.
Okay,
That's
well,
what I,
that's a different perspective, just to be fair, because I think what Nick was saying was a full blanket pardon.
what
And
Nick
I think
said.
those are two different
What
perspectives.
Nick said, Dustin, is he blanket immunity, and I disagree with that too. Like, but I agreed with. I said exactly what you said. No, every case needs to look at individually because early on
I agree.
when I was there early on, I did see bad shoots in the 2003-04 days. There was no accountability, and I'm not going to go any farther than that. But we policed our own too. We handled that. Yours wasn't. Yours was complete. You defended yourself. You did what you needed to do. It was complete bullshit. I've dealt with the FBI too, clown show. But I do. So that's the thing. Do you believe in a complete blanket immunity like Dustin? I mean, I like
Nick,
Nick,
yeah.
or like I said, individual case by
I
case.
guess we're going to differ a little bit on our opinions on that one because I think that everyone should be looked at each case individually, but I believe that they all should be looked at like
Sure.
as soon as possible.
It shouldn't be. You're not. Yeah, this shouldn't. What happened to you was complete travesty. It was. You guys is complete travesty. You never wait. You never do what they did. And Gina put a lot of light on this because a lot of stuff she said I didn't know. It's like, holy crap, you really, man. It was such a boondoggle. So, um, no, I'm in agreement with you on every case needs to be looked at, and that if you are, and that's what makes us different than terrorists. So we do have to hold ourselves to that higher moral code. Rangers, Marines, SEALs, SF, we all have credos. We expound by them, the Ranger Creed, morally straight. That's part of our stanza. That's we're above and beyond. So we do need to hold ourselves accountable. But yeah, I'm with you on every case needs to be looked at individually, and nobody should be railroaded like you were, and you were railroaded. But I think this book it will help. It does. It's
Yeah.
surprising. It does. It will help
The
limit that.
process has to be transparent.
There you go.
And one thing that I encountered while I was doing this were a lot of veterans who came out of the woodwork and said, I have a case really similar to this. I have a problem. And it wasn't just in civilian courts, it was in the military courts.
Yeah.
And that was pretty shocking to me. And I think that what Pete Hegseth is saying about the fact that, you know, the guys on the line, the troops were taking responsibility for stuff that were bad decisions
Yeah.
by their leaders. You know what I mean? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it was like, oh, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it is your
It
fault.
is your fault. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
buck stops with you. And when you have people who are going to prison for stuff that, they could not have avoided. I mean, like I said, I didn't really go deeply into any of these cases, but the number of people who approached me as a result of being involved in this case was shocking, and it really pissed me off because, the little that I saw, some of them would send me, court documents and stuff like that. And I was like, this is at the very least quite shoddy. And the way that the military criminal justice system is set up is not transparent. So,
Yeah.
that has to change. There has to be more of an attitude of the leadership taking responsibility for these things.
Well, that's how it
Yeah.
should be. That's what you're taught when you go in. The success or failure of any mission falls on the highest chain of command. McChrystal said that to us when he was our battalion commander when I was at Second Ranger, but it's never that way when things go shitty, when things go south.
No, it's
No,
not, and it's
it's
really
not.
wrong, and it's
It
really
is.
wrong. I mean, and
It
it's
is.
like the whole Lieutenant Callie thing, and that's the other thing. They kept saying, "Oh, this is like My Lai." No, it's
No.
not like that because two civilians got shot in this, not 34. Two, that's it. Okay. And secondly, it was kind of like Lieutenant Kelly in the sense that when he got pardoned, it was because the public was outraged by the fact that the military leadership did not take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
Hey,
Dustin, I wanted to, unless Chris has anything else, I wanted to ask you something about the jail time part. So when I spoke with Nick, actually, it was interesting because I booked him personally right before the book was out, and I remember we were just texting back and forth. And something I definitely learned about Nick that he talked about on the show itself. Nick is like deeply religious, right? I would just text Nick something about, hey, the show is going to be up Tuesday, and just truthfully, right? I'm not saying this to be funny, but you guys have seen it. Like Nick's text back would be like something about in Jesus' name, God bless you. And I'm not a Christian, right? I mean, if that's your thing, totally get it.
I am.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering for you, Dustin, did your faith
The faith,
play a
yeah.
part in getting through this the same way it did for Nick? Was that a big part of going through the sentence?
Well, so I mean, there's a lot of things that played the part. I'm not a really religious guy. I mean, I have my preferences and my thing. But to be honest with you, hope for my kids, staying strong for them to where one of the things that my daughter asked the judge for in our sentencing statement that she got to read to the court was, or she got to speak to the court. She wanted me home for her graduation. Well, I was home for graduation.
That's cool.
So,
Yeah, that's good.
focusing on my family and, not laying down and dying in prison, but just keep fighting until we finally get to where I'm able to go, see her walk across the stage. I'm able to go, do things with my children. And that was more of my hope. And I called my kids every single day that I possibly could, whether it was just for a couple minutes or something, but that was my focus.
That's good. And that's how you get through, man. You find a way. And that's a great way to get through. That's fantastic. And hey, I was gonna tell you, me, Oz, and Tig, and Boone, and Jack, we disagree all the damn time, dude. So it's okay. It's no problem disagreeing with what Nick said. We've motherfucked this and motherfucked that even to this day, and we still love each other. So don't
Oh,
even don't. And even on interviews, like, dude, why the hell did you say that? That was some dumbass shit. No, Tano, eat shit. I wanted, but that's it's the same banter, man. That's what we did in the when we were in, and that's how we do now, and that's how we still stay sane, and that's why we're still tight even when we don't agree on stuff. So you're okay to agree disagree with Nick, and I agree with your that as well, case by case basis.
oh.
So Nick can eat a bag of shit if he didn't agree with us. I'll text him myself. But no, but it really was. And Gina, the insight you put on this was fantastic. I mean, I want to ask more questions, but I don't have any. I mean, really don't
Well,
have
and
any.
also I should say in terms of that, to add to what Chris said, if you do have more questions, guys, read the book because the
There you
book
go.
is going to answer a lot of that stuff. I mean, we're just scratching the surface
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this interview, and this interview is about getting the book out there.
Yes, and also I just want to put out there that, as Dustin said, these guys basically were out of commission for about 13 years, 14. They couldn't really work while the investigation was going on, and then they went to prison for 6 years. So the book is for their benefit. Most of the proceeds go to them to try
Okay.
to rebuild their lives.
So
So, you know,
guys, how is
ton,
that? Are you guys doing any book signings? I guess put
yeah.
that, or if you are, how do we? Ian, this I'm taking Ian's thunder. He usually does this, but how do people find out about the book signings? How can they get signed copies? Because I tell you what, brother, one thing I have learned since 2015 when our book came out, people love military book signings, man, and signatures. So when is that going to happen? If and we there should be a movie. I think it'd be a great movie.
It
It'd
is
be
going to be
fantastic.
a great movie. That is going to happen. We're having a book signing here in Alney, since Alney is kind of the center of why all this happened, and it's going to be on Sunday the 17th. We're about 2 miles, or sorry, 2 hours west of Dallas. But then we're going to have another one probably in Nashville in September.
You know what
So
I
we'll let
should
everybody know what.
yeah. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you because what I was going to say is I work part-time freelance for Salem, and Salem is based out of Dallas.
Mhm.
So I'll get in touch with some people from Salem because it
Good.
would be great to get you guys in studio with some of the people there. And there's a bunch of shows that are shot out of Dallas for Salem. So I mean that would be
Great.
good promotion. So I mean I could definitely let them know.
Oh,
And
that
what
would that would
and
be
finish
great.
up where are you going to be in Nashville? Ian, before Ian rudely cut you off,
Interrupts,
where
yeah.
where are you going to be in Nashville?
We don't know yet. We're still working that out. We have a lot of supporters who are in that area, and we're just trying to make it so that they can all attend. So as soon as we know something, you can either look at my website, which is ginakeating.com, or go on the Raven23 Facebook page, and that will have everything on it.
And Gina and hey, Dustin, if you guys need anything, shoot stuff to my website. And Jeremy Mitchell, he worked at he was at Gitmo for years. Jeremy is a good buddy of mine. He runs all my stuff. We'll repost it and I'll get it
So
out there too.
yes.
No, you have everything you need that I have at your disposal. I just need to you need to tag me on it or send it to us so we can promote it out too.
Does
So
Kristen have your email address? Kristen Slough.
no, she may have had an old one, not in the new one. But if you go on my website, the
Uh-huh.
email address there, Me, my wife, and Jeremy. I'm nothing special. It's three of us run the company. It will always be that way. One of us will see it, and Jeremy usually sees it. And if he knows it's you guys, if all you guys say it's Raven 2-3, being an old Army vet himself and working in Iraq himself, he'll know. Just he'll pop it out. So Christy might, but I think she's got an old one. But just go to my website. It's my email anyway. That's
Yeah,
directly to
no,
me.
we'll send you. We have they're going to be doing some advertising for us. HarperCollins is
Cool.
recruiting, I
Good.
think maybe tomorrow, and we'll send you the ads that they made.
Whatever you want.
I'll repost that. That'd be great.
And if there's a movie, I will play Paul. I can't play Dustin. I'm too animated. There's no way. There's no way. No,
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
there's no
But
there's no way. I have to shave my head though, but
I
so I'll do it. I'll go ahead and do
Hey, I'm proud of him that he talked as much as he did.
I
it.
definitely will like I said, reach out to Salem because I mean you
Yeah.
guys should be doing more stuff in
Yeah.
studio. And like I said way earlier on the interview, it's just like people get distracted by what the hot story is at that minute. And
Yeah.
I really think it's important that doesn't happen with this book because it's such an important story that needs to be out there. Although it's this many years later, a lot of people haven't heard any of this. They haven't read the testimony. They saw pictures of the victims of the shooting and they said that's really what they drew a conclusion from, right? Without hearing what actually went down, without hearing the perspective of the guys on the
Mhm.
ground, without hearing the perspective of you. Yeah, no, this has been great. And you know, it's kind of funny. I'm going to ask this for Chris because I've been thinking this the whole interview, and this is my first time speaking with Gina, other than like the really short time that we spoke in preparation. I don't know if it's just me. You guys look nothing alike, but Gina reminds me of Sarah Adams, super bad.
You do kind of look like even
No, not
there.
looks, not
No,
looks,
no,
just
no.
her demeanor,
Well, no,
everything
actually,
about
when
her.
she did that kind of that's Sarah right there. Sarah and I great targeter, and obviously she's still adamantly going after the guys that attacked us continually. But no, it's the same way. I always just call Sarah if she didn't have her call sign super bad, I would have called her Pitbull because she bites and she doesn't let go. She doesn't let go till she wins, and it's similar, but. Where you come from, you could have been a CIA targeter. That could have been your other job. If you honestly, you would have been really good at being a targeter. But we could have actioned a lot of guys. It would have been fantastic. We'd have found them sons of bitches, and we would have now we wouldn't have cut their heads off, but we would have done things to them because they're bad guys. All right,
Okay.
but
Well,
that's
thank
it.
you. I think that's a
No, that's
compliment.
a
No, you just
definite,
remind me
definite
because you know what
compliment.
I
It's a
think it
very
is.
definite compliment.
I think it's even just the book itself, and I like I said, it's kind of just your demeanor and how like important this issue is to you. The fact that Sarah wrote a book about going after the guys responsible for the Benghazi attacks. You know, I think you just have that same drive and passion to get a story out there.
Yeah. I mean, because like I told Sean Ryan this, I was like, I don't want this to ever happen to me.
Sure.
It's kind of selfish, but it's if we cannot hold the line on constitutional issues, then what are we here for? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, what is this country if we're not making sure that everybody has due process? It just makes me mad on a very deep level. So,
Espe-
and it's like I've said before, it's like one of the most horrible feelings in the world is to visit someone in prison who you know is innocent and then watch them go back through to the cells. You're sitting there in the visiting room and you're watching him turn around and walk back into a prison cell and wonder, am I ever going to see him again? Like, what's going to happen to him? And that has just made me so profoundly angry that I just couldn't stop. So
Well,
that,
don't stop. Keep it going. Keep it going. And whatever she says to do, Dustin, do it.
yeah,
Just do it.
he
Just
doesn't
do
listen to me.
No.
it. Just like, but no, keep it going. And any way that myself, Ian, can help with either podcast or on even just my personal web stuff. But you're Paul or Dustin just can or Nick just get a hold of me or just shoot that email and we'll make it happen. I'll do the
Thank
best I can. Man, I don't have a following like I used to, but still got a little bit, so I can at least help a little bit.
Hey, we really appreciate you having us. I
Oh,
mean,
Oh,
absolutely.
you
And
know.
we
oh,
both, I mean,
honor.
truthfully, right, we both have some good connections. I even think of as I'm racking my brain, I think Andrew Wilkow would probably
Wilkow,
love to have you
yeah,
guys
he'd love
on.
to have you
You
guys on.
know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm still good friends with Bins, his producer, so I'll definitely reach out to him. And just I have no problem saying these are shows bigger than ours. So I mean, I have no problem, getting the word out there to something that's bigger than us. But at Keating Gina on Instagram. The book is out once again today for people listening on Tuesday. The book is out. Raven 23, How the Department of Justice Betrayed American Heroes. And yeah, it's through Broadside Books and HarperCollins. And I know you said Raven 23 on Facebook. Are there any other pages I should promote? Any other things that you want to get out there?
I don't think so. Just those two are the main ones, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah, just those. We have an
Okay.
Instagram account, Raven23 Productions, and yeah, I'm not a big social media person. So,
Neither am I.
yeah, so Chris, Paul's wife is basically doing that one,
Christy,
and
yeah, Christy
yeah,
is. Yeah.
Kristen is. She's
She,
a
she,
she's a genius.
yeah, she knows what she's doing on all
Yeah,
that.
she
So,
does.
I mean,
So yeah,
but
just those two. Very simple. Gina M. Keating or GinaKeating.com and Raven23. That's it.
Cool.
You'll
I'll
find
work.
us.
Well,
Dustin, I know you're like a man of few words, but is there anything else you want to get out there? Because go for it, man.
Nope.
Okay.
that perfect right there. If you would have said something else, I would have cut you off because then that wouldn't have been right. That right there, that was perfect. Well, I'm a faith man or not, God bless you. Honestly, your tattoos just to me is like damn Marines marking up their damn bodies. That's all I think. I give two shits about your tattoos, dude, because we all
Oh,
got
yeah.
them. That's but but yeah, dude. God bless you and do that father time, man. I mean, I know you're doing it.
I,
Make up for it, and
I appreciate y'all having us and,
Absolutely. And like I said, I know there's certain things you couldn't get into, and I hope it's all right that I did ask some of those tough things because I just think the things that I'm asking are things other people are wondering, and I want to make sure we get the full story out there. And Chris said he's not objective. I try to my best to be objective, and I think it's important that people who might have preconceived notions of you guys get an idea of who you really are.
No, we
indeed,
really appreciate it. We
yeah.
have no problem answering those questions because we have
Well,
everything we need to back it up.
that's all you need, bud. And there'll be more of them. Believe me, as this
Oh, yeah.
gets bigger, there'll be more, and you'll get used to it. And just let your coach to what's your right, probably left, let your coach teach you. I got taught a lot by Mitchell and Richard Abate over there at Three Arts, and all those guys. They taught us. They coached us. Dude, my first interview was Bill O'Reilly. I said like three words. Dude, I was the worst interview ever in the whole history of interview. I look like, and so you're doing way better than me, man. Way better than
I,
me.
I got a few more than three in there. So,
You got me more than three. So, well, again, God bless you both. And Gina, whatever you need, hit us up, hit me up, hit
Oh,
me up,
don't
and
you worry, I will.
well, hey,
got you.
when you go down the street to Fort Scott down there, tell
Yeah,
them
yeah.
I
Nice.
said hello.
Who do you know down? Do you know the guys? Who do you
Yeah,
know?
so I'm also a rep for CNG Holsters, and we do the same trade shows. So a lot of their
Nice.
sales staff is who I know.
Ah, yeah, Steve and Ryan and Robbie and Preston and all, they're all buddies. Those sons of bitches. Love them all. Love all of them, man. Yeah, I will. I'll tell them you said hi. And do you want me to send you anything? I'll make them send you shit. What do you want? I'll go down
Oh,
there.
I've bought a lot of Fort Scott, so
All right. Well, do you need some ammo? I'm gonna tell them to send you a case. I'm doing it. I'll send you a case, man. I
works
can't
for
make.
me.
Yeah, he doesn't get it all. I get some too.
All right. Well, split the case up. Well, it's a big case. It's 500 rounds, so
All
it's
right.
250.
Awesome,
Yeah.
guys. I'm
No,
gonna
I
clip
will.
that for them, by the way. They'll love that.
Yeah,
They'll
they'll
love
love
if I
that,
send it
dude.
over.
Yeah, I mean, they're my boys, man. Of course, and I live here. That's where I live. So,
No,
yeah. And you're always welcome to come shoot you in town. We got a range. We'll go shoot. Cool.
Where is
We'll go.
that? Where is Fort
Fort
Scott?
Scott, Kansas.
It's
Oh,
right at yeah, Kansas. It's Joplin, Missouri. About 50 minute.
where are you from?
Me?
Fort Scott, Kansas.
You're from Fort Scott?
Well,
Fort
not
Scott.
from, but
Where,
lives around
where
there.
I live in Fort Scott. I was my draw comes from Fort Benning in Texas. So
Okay.
my dad is from Spur, Texas, and
Oh,
then Army Rangers. We're all Benning, Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. I can. My mom's Mexican, so I can I can speak like Gerardo if I need to, but I'm more natural with the drawl because of my dad being from Spur. and from Benning. But yeah,
From Spur. Oh my
from
gosh.
Spur, Texas, over by Lubbock, you know. No,
I
and
could tell you about when
Me
Gina
too.
is asking where's Fort Scott, Kansas, as like a Long Island guy who's been out there. Like I would genuinely say it's middle of nowhere. Like when people, say they're from the middle of nowhere, like it really is. I do feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere because you got to get off at
Where
the
are you?
airport.
it's by
I'm on
Joplin,
Long Island. I'm
Missouri.
in Port
Oh,
Washington. Or
you're in
you're
Long Island.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I get off at the airport at Kansas City and you're driving an hour and a half, no rest stops, like there's nothing. It's unlike anything I've seen. I mean, I've been all over the country. I've been to just about every state, and this is truly middle of nowhere, you
It's
know.
it's beautiful. It's outside Joplin, Missouri. It's in the Ozarks,
Oh, I know where that is.
right
I'm
on
from
the
St.
Ozarks.
Louis.
Oh, you're yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
so I drive that way to go visit my dad.
yeah, you would. I mean, if you go through Kansas City, you'll miss us. But if you go through Wichita, like you're driving on Highway
Yeah.
7,
Hmm.
then you'll go. I mean, you won't come through. You'll go right by it. But yeah, it's because there's no interstate within 2 hours
Yeah.
of this place. But Kansas City's like Ian says, hour and a half north. Branson, Missouri's 2 hours to the east. St. Louis is about 8 hours. I mean, it's a little bit
It's
because
that far.
it
Because I
might
know
be.
Joplin's like 5 hours.
It might be five. It might
Yeah,
be six. I may be thinking of Nashville from here because I
yeah.
just drove. But
Yeah, Nashville's far. That would be about right.
now you're probably right. 6 hours then from Fort Scott to St. Louis, and but no, it's beautiful because like Ian said, it's middle of nowhere. I love
Yeah.
it because nobody wants to be out here. So
That's like here. No one's gonna sneak up on you in Olney
I
because everyone knows everyone in town.
damn right.
So
Leave us
like when
alone.
I was doing the book, and his dad would talk about this all the time, our phones would get real messed up. Like they'd drop calls and like all of our contacts would disappear and stuff like that. And I was like, thank God I live here because if anyone showed up that didn't belong here, no.
They get stopped.
You would
No,
immediately, yeah. So nothing's gonna happen to me in Olney. There's
never.
probably more guns here than
Hey, we got plenty of them. We're right here. We got plenty of them. We're just got to do the interview. But the thing is, it's not. So you don't find anybody open carrying out here. It's. Well, I mean, because sometimes you'll find a couple, but everybody's carrying. Everybody,
yeah,
but it's not outlandish just to make a point. It's to carry because leave us the fuck alone.
right.
Don't start. Hey, if ain't start shit, there won't be no shit. And
Because there's constitutional carry in Missouri, right? You don't need any
you
kind of
don't need, and their same is in Kansas as
yeah.
well. But majority of people, I said I'm a concealed carry instructor, licensed Kansas guy, and most people still want to get there. It protects you legally. It protects
Right.
because you can tell. Yeah, did you go through a concealed carry? You know the law. Yeah, I did. I went through. Here's my then, but
Yeah.
but you don't have to. Yeah, it's the same as Missouri. You can
Yeah.
carry you can carry your 6 guns on your hips if you want.
Well,
Uh, well, and you can too. You can too, Dustin, if you want to. It's
oh
all
yeah.
right.
It's not a six gun, but yeah.
You can carry your Desert Eagle if you want to try to hit something with that damn thing.
What
It's
have you
fine.
got? There you go.
Oh, is it? Buddy, I'm getting old. Is that just a Glock 17?
Glock 20.
Is it a 20? Oh, you got 20. Nice. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I have not given up. 55 years old. I need my readers, and I have not come to that point that I've accepted that yet. So maybe
I,
next year.
I promise you, I feel you.
Every day. But yeah, but I'll tell him. I'll tell him. And if you're ever in the area, bring Gina with you. The range is half mile down from my house. We'll go shoot. I know Ryan and Robbie would love to see you anyway, man. They'll come out and whoever else wants to come out. Or if you guys want to I'm sure they'd be down to do a book signing here. We could ask Ryan. But small town, there's not a lot of big areas here, but I've done a couple here back in the day, and they were well received. But it was a long time ago when the movie just came out.
Ooh,
So
wait till our movie comes out and do it.
that I think I that would be they would be more. They do a good job promoting it here. It's just people got to come from, small town. They got to come from miles to come to it. But I said the two that I've done here back in the early days when the movie came out, they did quite well, and I even outdrew the Duck Commander. They brought the Duck Commander guy
Yeah.
in because he's a friend, and I actually had more guys than he did. So,
Maybe we can do
yeah.
that at one of the gun shows. That'd be really good.
And
That's a good idea.
shot show in NRA, just you got to bring them yourself. They won't. You got to bring them and do everything yourself, and you have to hide them because they don't want lines. They don't want lines, but it's easy to do. I'll show you the trick. It's easy. Piece of cake. Easy to do.
All right. Well, we'll stay in touch for sure. I know I will.
Okay,
Gina.
Gina.
The questions.
Yes, ma'am. Do it.
Thanks,
And,
guys.
buddy, take care. All right.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.